Hi, guys. Welcome to the episode of my favorite podcast, The Pathways to the Ivies. Today on our show, we have the very beautiful Viha Loda. She is doing her BSc honors at the Ashoka University. She's a first year student with a major in biology and possibly a minor in chemistry or psychology. She's yet to figure out. In this episode specifically, we are going to address liberal arts universities like Ashoka in India. What is students' experience? What does the transition from an international board school to the Ashoka in like liberal arts belt of India look like? What are students' experiences? And why we are, despite having a fantastic profile and a great SAT score and everything else that worked for her, chose to go to an Indian liberal arts university vis-a-vis going to a university abroad. So we're going to discuss all these points and of course a lot more. So Viha, welcome to the show. Very, very pleased to have you here. And I appreciate you taking out an hour of your time in your busy schedule in your hostel to speak with us. So thank you so much. Please go ahead and introduce yourself by yourself. This is my introduction, but a little bit about who you are, what is your background, what school do you come from, your hobbies and stuff like that. Our viewers would love to know that, and then we can kind of take it from there.
Okay, thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm Viha Lodha, and I was from Bright Start from 1st to 10th, and then I was in ABVA from 11th and 12th, where I did my A levels, and now I'm at Ashoka doing my BSc in biology. What I like doing is reading, writing. I love music. I love listening to music. I don't play any instrument, so that I want to do.
Wonderful, Viha. So I'm assuming when you say ABBA, you're talking about Aditya Birla World
Yeah.
Academy, a school based out of Bombay, which is fantastic. So Viha, tell us a little bit about yourself. Let us know what like you. I'm assuming you did your A levels. That's what I can see on your resume.
Yeah.
So can you elaborate the subjects you chose? What went behind choosing of those subjects? Is something that if you could, tell our viewers and listeners, of course, as well, that what subjects you chose, what were the 4 or 5 subjects you chose, and what went behind choosing those subjects, like why those subjects that you chose.
Hmm. I was always in IGCSE, and I've always liked the aspect of learning practically and not and using application, and I hated rote learning. So that was something. So I decided that I don't want to do junior college essentially, and I got into A levels because it was a more in depth understanding of the subject. I took 5 subjects instead of 4. You're supposed to take 4 and then 3 the next year, but I took 5. That was English, maths, physics, chemistry, and bio. I took all the sciences so that I could keep my options open because I did not know if I wanted to go to Ashoka. Like, I was very clueless as to where I wanted to go, of course, when I, chose my subjects. So our counselor told us to keep all my options open, hence all 3 sciences.
Wonderful. I have a question for you. So you mentioned you were always not into the, rote learning methodology.
Yeah.
And that's why, the natural progression of IGCSE was A levels. But why not IBDP? A lot of kids kind of get confused between, hey, should I choose IBDP and should I choose A levels? And you were very clear, hey, I'm going for A levels and not IBDP. So what was the rationale behind it? Why?
Yeah.
Because both are international boards. Why IGCSE versus an IVDP? Because you could still choose all your sciences and all the 3 sciences and a math, which you essentially chose at A levels as well.
Yeah. So personally, I didn't want to choose any extra subjects than I didn't want. So you have to do a languages. That is something I didn't want to do. So hence not IB. And also I heard that IB is very, very difficult and you don't have a social life. So the good difference, like it was a good balance. A levels was a good balance between junior college and IB for me. Like I had a good amount of workload, but also had a life at the end of the day. And if you do want to get a little exposure to research or something, you can always choose an IPQ program that A levels offers, at least ABBA offers. I did get like exposure to how to write a research paper, at least one. So, I mean, A levels did provide me with all the backing that I needed to come to Ashoka. So, I didn't feel like I was, dropped of any experience.
So I have a question. A lot there's a myth in this. Everybody, everybody who I mean, talks to me and comes to me and says like, "Hey, A levels is tougher than IBDP." What's your take on that? Since you mentioned that you did have your chance to live a life, considering you took 3 of the hardest subjects like physics, chemistry,
Yeah.
biology. That is. super hard, and then there was a math and there was an English, which is the hardest combination you can take for a student. And despite that, you're staying, you still had a life. So what's your take on, I mean, A levels being harder than IBDP? Do you agree to it, disagree to it? Can you just bust this myth once and for all of our viewers and listeners who are so confused, because a lot of times it's just pure hearsay. So I want to hear from somebody like you who's done this.
So personally, I was the only person in my school who had this combination of subjects. Nobody else took this, especially in my last year. First year, I had one more person with me, but in the second year, it was only me. And I think that my IB friends will kill me if I tell them that A levels is tougher than IB is. It's really not. IB is a lot of work compared to A levels because it has your IAs, your EEs, and many other different things. So all that we don't have at A levels, but what we do have and why it is rigorous is the constant flow of exams that we have. Every month you will have an exam. You have a lot of pressure when it comes to academic workload. Like IB has many exams every week. They're in a constant cycle of working, but we have them like we have to crunch at a time and then we're free in the middle, then crunch some more and then free in the middle. So it's like that. So when you are free in the middle, I have a life, but when I have to crunch for work, I have to. So you have to just find the balance between, studying and just having a life in general.
Perfect. So what I understand what you're saying, and again, you could reiterate this as well, is IB is more consistent work over a period of time.
Yeah,
IGCSE or A levels, sorry, A levels is more like sort of bunch, the work is bunched up and then there's a period. It's like a crest and a trough.
yeah,
At the crest you have like a lot of work and exams and submissions, and then it goes a little flat, and then whatever, which means that I think if somebody wanted to crack IGCSE or A levels for that matter,
hmm,
the key would be self discipline, keeping that consistency in place, right,
yeah.
during that flat period. Did I say that right? If you could
Yeah,
just tell
yeah.
our
I'd also
viewers in
like to
terms of what I
say
said.
that it is very important to not lose your focus. Like, so if you have exams at one time and then you're like, okay, now I'm free because my exams are over, then you also have to find the ability to get back on track and study. Because once, like, if you're like you're saying, it's a crest and a trough. If you go high, then when you come low, like, you can lose motivation to even study some more. So that is something that you constantly have to do. Like, you have to find motivation.
I understand. And that's a great, great point, because, I think a lot of people just go for IVDP because they feel that, oh, that's the more acceptable board. But, and, IGCSE is harder. But thank you for debunking the myth that, IGCSE and hence A levels, is a lot easier board, except, if you have the self discipline to kind of study, and focus, you'll definitely have lesser things.
Yeah,
One of the things you mentioned, Viha, in the formative part of our conversation is the IPQ, the
yeah.
research program. Could you just elaborate on that? Like, what was this research program? And, what was it that you were kind of talking about? And was it specifically ABBA specific, or is it there for all, IGCSE students?
So IPQ is essentially International Project Qualification, and it is something that A levels offers, but AVA gave us the option of choosing it. I don't know if other schools do. I know Bright Star did not. So depends on your school again. It is essentially writing a 5,000 word research paper on any topic of your choice, and it shows you how to write a research paper. Like, you get so we had programs before that on how to find your research question, what to include, how to research. So basically it was just a roadmap on writing my first research paper. However it was okay because uh it's my first paper, so it didn't matter. And the best part is Cambridge checks your paper. It's not checked by your anybody at your school. So we had mentors. We had my biology teacher helped me and she read my paper, and then we were finding ways on how to improve it. But at the end of the day, Cambridge checks it. So that it's checked by a qualified professor, like
Yeah. So another pointer for all of our listeners here would be that, if you are going to choose A levels, see if, your school offers the option, or that
hmm,
Cambridge does offer to all schools, of the IPQ, wherein, you can write a research paper if you choose to, so that, it gives you that exposure in the sense of getting and how to write a research paper without actually making any without any additional cost. It is a part of your curriculum, and it'll give you the exposure that is required.
Actually, you do have to pay for this. It's not without any extra like cost. You have to pay for this. It's like every other exam. Like A levels asks you to pay, right, for your
Yeah, but it's
exam.
included as a part of the curriculum is what I'm trying to say, right? Like you
Yeah,
pay
yeah,
as a part of the
yeah,
fees. You don't,
yeah,
I mean, yeah, so that's what, of course, that I didn't
yeah.
mean it in that way, but there are a lot of organizations who help you research, which is great. But now
Hmm.
this is embedded as a part of your curriculum, and
Right. Yeah,
you have to pay like you would have paid for any other exam because it's a subject that you're
yeah,
opting for.
yeah, yeah,
Another question that kind of keeps I mean, I'm really intrigued about is you took 5 subjects,
yeah,
which is usually people taking 4, and you have like 3 sciences, math and English.
yeah.
So how is it dabbling 5 subjects and 5 really tough subjects on A levels? Was it like too challenging? Was it like, did you need any external help in terms of tutoring or whatever?
Hmm.
uh, I mean, do you suggest this to somebody who knows they want to go for sciences, which you knew, but don't know what is the path forward? Like,
Hmm.
keep the sciences open by doing this because you've chosen all sciences in math. So
Yeah.
how is it dabbling with 5 subjects, A, and B, how is it taking all sciences on your platter for 2 years consecutively?
I mean, one thing that you have to have in check is that you should like the sciences. I know I liked learning, biochem, physics. That is one reason why I took them also. And it was difficult. Like compared to IGCSE, when they told me that it was 10 times bit difficult than IGCSE, and IGCSE is already a little difficult. So I was like, you're definitely joking, that's not possible. But surprise, surprise, it was. It was very difficult. And one thing is that I didn't have any tutors, so for any subject, but the teachers at APVA were really nice. They helped me for everything. They told me how to go about. They told me about the practice papers, and it's just a lot of discipline and motivation, and I mean all the other inspirational words that you have to have in yourself. You have to practice constantly, and by that I mean every single day. If something is taught today, you have to revise it by today or by tomorrow maximum, otherwise it is not going to be retained, or you're just going to lose track of everything. So it is a lot of consistency. And I did not like physics in my second year, but I still took it because I knew that it would keep my options open. So that is just something that you have to deal with. Like it's your trading off a little, but it's okay. It's fair because physics was also very interesting in my second year. So yeah. Also, YouTube sources are really helpful. ET Physics by ET Physics on YouTube was it helped me. It saved my life for physics. So yeah.
You've taken 5 subjects on IGCSE,
Yeah.
and there is an IBDP, which is 6 subjects, 3 SL, 3 HL.
Yeah.
And then there's, of course, IEs, there's TOK, there is, the all the other activities, CAS, So
Hmm.
still, in this case also, 5 really difficult subjects on A levels
Yeah.
and 6 subjects plus all of these, you still consider A levels easier.
Okay, that's just probably a me thing. I like when it is a little more challenging. Again, I've not done IB, so I cannot say. Also, we did have SSR, like that was social service, so that was our equivalent of CAS. So it's not like we don't have elements of IB. We had to clock in 15 hours of community service by ABBA, so that was essential. But I think I just like it more challenging, and I liked my A level program despite the fact that it was tough. So yeah. It was okay for me.
So, let me spin this question for you. Forget your experience,
Hmm.
right? Just a generic experience for you. If somebody had 5 subjects at, and not necessarily science, it could be a combination of business management, it could be a combination of psych, all the other subjects that
Yeah.
A levels has to offer, vis-a-vis an IBDP program with the same kind of subjects. Which would be more rigorous in your opinion? I totally understand this is your opinion and subjective, but if you could just debunk it, it would be much easier for the viewers to make a decision going
Hmm.
forward.
I think IB would still be more difficult because you have your IAs and you have EE, and all of that is a lot. Like you are leveling up in terms of academics and everything. So that is so I would still say that IB is more difficult than A levels would be.
do you think taking IB or A levels makes a difference in your acceptance rate at Ashoka or any other universities that
No.
you'd apply to? Is does one have a better preference over the other? Because that's also one of the most common questions that people address. That, hey, IB is more widely accepted. IB is more widely accepted. IB is more widely accepted. So I just want to know from the horse's mouth that, do you think somebody took an IB had an advantage over you? Let's talk about Ashoka specifically because
Yeah.
that's where you've gotten into. So, was there an advantage to them?
Absolutely not. We are the same. The curriculum is the same. It is just the difference is choosing what kind of education you want to do, in the sense you want IB or A levels. Otherwise, universities do not differentiate between A levels or IB. All they see is your score. They see your consistency. They see what things you have been good at, and if you have been consistent at that. They see your application, they see you as a person, but they will not see if you come from A levels or IB. So that is something that at least Ashoka did not do, or any other university that I applied to. Some of my best friends are from IB and A levels, and Ashoka has a great combination uh, of all boards. Like that includes IB, A levels, ISC, HSE. So yeah, so Ashoka is not differentiating, nor is any other university. Because one of my best friends got into University of Pennsylvania at in USA, and she's in the Viper program, and she's from A levels, and I know how much effort she put in. So it doesn't matter if you're from IB or A levels; they see the amount of effort you've put.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. This was an absolute important myth to debunk
Yeah,
because it's just very, it's, when it comes from a student and somebody who's been there, done that, and especially with a student who also got into Viper in the UPenn, it's going to be a lot more legit to our users. So thank you for debunking
yeah,
that. Now let's move on to your choice of colleges. Like, why did you choose, most of the students who take the A levels or the
yeah.
IBDP are thinking of it from the perspective of going abroad, right?
Right.
So, what kind of triggered your decision to choose a college in India, that to a liberal arts belt? Like, what was it? And rather than, I would rather know. Forget one is the family aspect part of it and
Yeah.
feeling lonely part of it, but I want to know the rationale in terms of what you were thinking as a student. Why in Ashoka to a university abroad? What was your thought process while you nailed down on Ashoka? And did you apply to any other colleges abroad and reject those to get into Ashoka? Or from the beginning, you were very clear that I want to go for liberal arts schools in India itself?
Firstly, there are many factors that go into when you are choosing your university. So it was, like you said, family and academics and location as well. So for me, India, I chose India because one, it was closer to home. I could come back anytime I want to. I have literally gone back 3 4 times in the past 1 year. Um, Also, it's the cultural change that hits you, and I don't think at this, like, I'm 19 now and I'm turning 20, and I think I would cry if I was going abroad. I see my friends cry on a daily basis. So I chose this life. And also, I think liberal arts for me, I knew I wanted to do biology, but I knew I didn't want to do engineering or medicine or something like that. I wanted to get into research. So I thought liberal arts would be a good place for me to start, wherein I don't have to set down if I want to do zoology or if I want to do a particular field. So, and that was something that universities in India were asking. I applied to Ahmedabad University, and that is one curriculum that they asked me to nail down, and I had to do that for 5 years, which is something that did not set right with me. What if I want to change in the middle? Like, I was in the beginning, I said I want to minor in chem, but now I want to minor in psychology. So that is something that liberal arts has provided me, allowed me to choose whatever subject I want to do. If tomorrow I get up and say I want to major in computer science, for example, Ashoka can still accommodate me for that. I have seen seniors who have changed their major in the second year, and I think that is wonderful because we're still figuring out what we want to do. I knew I wanted to get into bio. So many people still don't. Like, so many have come undeclared. They don't know what they want to do, and that was the beauty of Ashoka for me. That the first year, they you have to do these 9 foundation courses, and the first year they have thrown these courses at you. It's great books, it's literature, it's psychology, it's physiology, it's everything. And no, sorry, not physiology. philosophy, my bad. And so you have to do all of this, and then you decide what you want to, major in. So that was something that was beautiful about Ashoka.
Okay. So another myth that I want you to debunk, and for all of our viewers, right? The moment you use the word liberal arts, they
Mm,
think it is an arts program, right?
yeah.
But the word liberal arts originates from liberal arts schools in America, where you follow a curriculum where you have the liberty to experience everything and then choose what your major looks like. Vis-a-vis the traditional way of studying, where you're fixed and you're bound to a certain curriculum. So can you just clarify for our viewers that what really liberal arts, the arts in the liberal arts really means, and
Yeah.
how liberal it is? Until what time can you have the opportunity to change your major? How is it different from anything else or the traditional Indian curriculum that students are accustomed to doing? Yeah, if you could just let our viewers know that and the listeners also know that, that would be perfect.
Yeah. So many people say that they want to do a certain subject. They want to do engineering or something, and then by the end of their first year or second year, they absolutely hate it. I did not want to be one of those people, and so I chose liberal arts. And Ashoka allows you to choose till your third sem. My bad, sorry, third sem, to declare your major, and that is essentially when you have to, clock in your credits and do everything relating to your major so that you can actually graduate. But before that, you are at your liberty to choose any subjects you want, any courses you want. And liberal arts, I think, lets you dabble into any kind of subject that you want, irrespective of what your major is. So if I'm doing biology today, nobody is nobody is prohibiting me from doing taking an eco course. It's okay, I can do that. So I think the variation, the diversity in choosing what you want to do is what Ashoka and other liberal arts universities as well let you do.
So you're saying liberal arts is not arts at all?
No, it's not arts at all. One thing that I want everybody to know is that liberal arts is not arts at all. It is just allowing you to be flexible with your choices and letting you experience everything that is on your plateau, and then you go ahead with it, and you see what you want to major in.
And what are the streams that Ashoka has in terms of, a lot of the common conception about Ashoka that I have seen is most people think Ashoka is a very engineering college, right? I mean, at least I think that's what I've heard. Again, I'm not a counselor. I just am hearing about what people have to say. So if you could just demystify it for our viewers that, of course, engineering being one of the streams, what are the other majors that Ashoka offers in terms of, the variety or of subjects and courses and majors?
Firstly, Ashoka does not offer engineering. We do not have an engineering program. We do have a BSc in EcoFin that it is very famous for, which is basically an interdisciplinary course between people who want to do economics and finance. But the amount of finance courses are less, but still it is an interdisciplinary course that is very exclusive to Ashoka only. And we also have psychology, we have biology, chemistry, mathematics, physics. You have PPE, that is another interdisciplinary course, that is politics, philosophy and economics. So you can do so many different subjects in one course. And you have com science, you have a wide range of subjects you can choose from, but it is not engineering or medicine, so it is not your conventional degree.
Wonderful. And by interdisciplinary, you mean like doing several things at one go. Like, when you said ecofin, it means you're studying economics and
And
finance together,
finance.
which is a little bit of both, right? That's what
Yes.
interdisciplinary means. So if you can just explain our viewers what interdisciplinary means, because again, this is a very US terminology. And for a
Right.
lot of people who are aspiring to think of Ashoka as a school that they would, want to go to, what does interdisciplinary mean?
So interdisciplinary basically is where you can take two disciplines and you can combine them and major in that. So economics, for example, and finance. If you go to any other university, they won't allow you to do finance until your masters, but Ashoka is allowing you to do that, where you can take economics and some amount of courses for finance and club that together and do a major. So like I said, PPE, that is politics, philosophy, and economics. So that is three different disciplines that I'm combining together and making a degree out of it.
Wonderful. And now I want to talk about, your life at Ashoka. You transitioned from an IGCSE to an A levels to, and a course like, I mean, a school like Ashoka. Again, liberal artsy, but, a lot of students with going to the international school have this reservation that, I may not be able to acclimatize to an Indian curriculum. And of course, Ashoka is liberal arts, but still, because Indian curriculums prohibit using of calculator, which you guys have been using for the
Yeah.
longest time. So how was that transition looking like for you? Transitioning from an international board to like in Ashoka, where you're thinking and wondering, and it's a very different ball game as compared to going to the US. So what was that transition kind of process for you? If you could just let us know.
I think I transitioned very smoothly into this program because it was something so similar to what I was doing at A levels. It was application based thinking. It was not rote learning. I'm doing a psych course right now, and my professor doesn't care if we know the names of, your brain, like, structures in your brain. He doesn't care if I know the full form of SCN. It's an open book test, and he just cares if I know the application of everything that is learned. And that is something that I have been doing at A levels and IGCSE. So this was the perfect place for me to be at because I transitioned smoothly, and this is what I wanted to do. There is no rote learning here, and I think it is very similar to what universities do abroad also. So we have an odd program here where it is case studies, and we are taking it from real life examples. So day before yesterday, I was talking about epigamia and theobroma, and that is also something that I can do at Ashoka. I can study on, like, that is entrepreneurship. I'm a bio major doing entrepreneurship. So to everybody who's done 11th and 12th in an international school and they fear that transitioning to an Indian board that only comprises of rote learning, I strongly suggest that you do a liberal arts college because it eliminates this entire process. It takes practical approach. They do case studies and they base it on real life examples, and that is something that Ashoka has pioneered.
Wonderful. And now coming back to the fees part of it, this is something that is really, really a
Yeah.
big concern for a lot of parents, I know, because studying abroad can cost you upward of a 2 crore, which is $500,000 at this point in time. And that is not everybody's cup of tea. So can you just elaborate a little bit more on your fee structure at Ashoka, and if you could include all the expenses, meaning your lodging, your boarding, your studying expenses, and even your miscellaneous expenses, something as simple as taking a flight back home. You said you mentioned you
Yeah.
come here 3 4 times. So if you can just account on a year on year basis that, oh, I spent so much in year one, multiply that by 4 years. So
Yeah.
this is the tentative expense I'm looking at for Ashoka for 4 years. If you could just let that shed that light for our viewers, then it would be perfect for everybody.
So essentially, if you go on the site, it'll show you that it's 12 lakhs per annum for Ashoka, which is 10 lakhs for tuition and 2 lakhs for lodging and residence, for accommodation essentially. But of course there are other expenses like day to day, mess transactions, or you go to Delhi and you decide you want to splurge a little, eat fancy food once, like once a week outside campus. So your, I think expenses come up till 13.5 probably, including um if you go back home and come. So that is, I think, 15,000 per trip, come and go. And I think that is still a lot less compared to universities abroad, because I think I'm spending only 50 lakhs for 4 years, and I want to do 4 years. If you want to do three, that's lesser. 50 lakhs is like a good amount for a undergraduate program compared to if you want to go abroad, and that includes
Essentially,
everything. Yeah.
Essentially, so you're saying, just on a higher side, let's say 15 lakhs instead of 13.5,
Yeah,
putting in some other cost that you incur. So for 4 years, you'll put in about 60 lakhs. So 50 to 60 lakhs is
yeah, yeah.
what you had said, which is a fourth of the cost that, you will incur if you were to study abroad in the same environment, using the same methodology and using the same professors, skipping the rote learning, correct?
Right. Yes, definitely.
Perfect. And another thing that I wanted to address, which is another question that I get very often, is the safety of Ashoka. So, a lot of people have a lot of apprehensions that, oh,
Yeah.
it's, in the northern part of India, which I'm not saying is safe, but a lot of the media has highlighted it to be, the epicenter of everything wrong that goes in this country, especially with women's safety. So, I know students who walk away from Ashoka only because it is, situated up north. So if you can just shed some light on the safety bit of Ashoka, and how you felt, what the campus looks like, how often do you have to travel outside of campus,
Hmm.
for normal activities and even for leisure activities. Like let's say I want to go and watch a movie, or do I have to step out? So what does your campus life
Right.
look like? How is the safety issues? If especially for women, considering it's a major point that students, just call us and call me and like, hey, what should I like kind of, be thinking about it. So if you can just shed light on that, that would be perfect, Viha.
I agree with what you say when you say that North India is not very safe compared to Bombay. Like, I'm a person who comes from Bombay, and I've been out, at 1 and 2 in the night without a fear in the world. But I cannot say the same about Sonipat. So that is something that Sonipat might not be safe, but Ashoka is very safe. Like, they take safety very seriously. We have an ID card. We have to tap it in and out every time we have left campus, and you have these two rules, that is case by case or blanket rule. So if you are on case by case, you have to come back before 10 p.m., and you are not allowed to leave between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. in the morning. But if you have blanket, the rule still applies, but it's 12 p.m., so it's a little extended. Also, we have shuttle service that is constantly going between Ashoka and Jahangirpuri metro station. If you ever want to do leave campus and go to Delhi, then it is so easy for you to just sit on a shuttle, go to a metro station, and then connect to anywhere you want to go. Also, expenses are lesser because you don't have to actually put in the amount of the money for an Uber or something like that. And on I think it is very safe. If you like, do not, even I know people who have gone out in the night also. There are places across campus where you can go partying, and it is still safe. Relatively, if you go in bigger groups, it's not like you cannot do this experience at all. You can still live a proper college experience, but you just have to be a little aware and cautious of where you are and who you are going with. But I think that applies for every wherever you go in life. So yeah, otherwise I think I feel extremely safe when I'm on campus. It is its own bubble. The people, we have so many rules relating cash and carry. Cash and carry is basically sexual harassment and alcohol or any other substance use, this against substance use. So I think that Ashoka in general takes safety very seriously. We've had many seminars and town halls regarding it, and I have never for once felt unsafe on campus.
Perfect. So I think this is something that all the viewers should know. The safety aspect of it applies to even if you go abroad. Look, I went to
Right.
University of Chicago, and I remember on the first day of my orientation, we were very clearly said, do not cross the street. If you're going past 11:30, 12 in the night, hang out in a group of 20. Lesser chance of you getting mugged or anything else when you're in a bigger group. So that applies to any part. Yes, of course, Bombay is an exception, but any which ways you're going to go to college outside of Bombay, so I think you can't compare everything to Bombay. So
Yeah.
that's a great point. How about stepping out for leisure activities? Do you have the provision of
Yeah.
watching movies, theaters, restaurants on campus or closer to campus, or for that you'll have to probably go to Delhi using the metro station?
Movies, you have to go to Delhi because there's no good theater, and you don't want to sit in a theater that is very, not you don't know about it, especially in Sonipat. So I would not suggest watching movies in Sonipat. You should go to Delhi for that. Or we have many screenings on campus, so whenever it comes on an OTT platform, you can see. So campus does, like the students, we have many clubs, so you it does incorporate all your normal life activities. But for leisure activities, like suppose I want to go out for a good meal, then I do go to Delhi through the shuttle service that I talked about. There is not much around campus. around in and around Sonipat, so you can't do a lot. You have to essentially travel 1 hour or 1.5 hour. That is the nearest to any place that you want to.
Perfect. Now let's talk about your what is your experience generally about Ashoka, and then we'll talk about what did you do to get into Ashoka. But just generally with your professors, what is the diversity ratio of the professors? Do you have too many Caucasians, Indians, Afro Americans? I've heard from a lot of students that you do have Caucasian professors, and
Yeah.
the learning approach we've already discussed in the past. But how are the professors, how is the approach of teaching, and in general, if you could just comment on those stuff.
So I'm still in my first year, so I've not had a lot of experience with many professors. But yeah, we have a good mix of all kinds of professors from all nationalities. I don't know a lot about African Americans though. I have spoken to some Caucasian professors, and I think that they bring in their share of experiences, and then the class is really very casual and chill. It's not like your conventional school experience where you can't talk about anything in front of them. They will talk to you like they are, like they're your friends, and you'll have this very normal experience. We have office hours where you can go to them with any problem, and you can speak anything, and they'll give you food recommendations, they'll give you movie recommendations, they'll give you life recommendations. If you ask them for relationship advice, they'll give you that as well. So I think it's really very casual with them.
Yeah, so basically it's just encouraging students to be opinionated, and this is
Right.
something that I like about Ashoka and liberal arts belt schools in general. It's not very traditional, where of course there is respect, but not speaking out what you feel is not considered a sign of not respecting. Like speaking out what you feel in a very respectful way is actually how it should be. And of course, try to be more at a friendly level with the students, trying to understand their problems, addressing them, and keeping it more casual, which is fantastic. And I believe that's how it should be at. And then I'm glad that Ashoka is harboring that culture. What about placements at Ashoka? Let's break this question into two parts. One is people who want to work a year or two, or maybe just continue working after Ashoka. What does the annual salary range average look like? And for what about students who want to go and pursue their masters abroad? A lot of people, do they get accepted into a lot of foreign universities, good established universities? You may not know everything, but whatever it is that would be great to shed light for our viewers and listeners.
So I don't know about the salary thing, because that is something that I knew I didn't want to do. I wanted to complete till my fourth year, do research, and then do a master's. So that is not something that I looked at. But I know that they have great placements, especially UC Berkeley, LSE. So one of my friends is doing a summer program right now, and she got in. She just got in. Like she didn't have to put in any effort, because they already had collaborations with LSE, and she's doing a summer program at LSE, which is amazing. They have great placements, and wherever you want to go, they guide you. The career outreach cell is really very helpful with anything. If you want to plan your trajectory, we have many UG reps also. So you have your bio rep, chem rep. If you want to plan what you want to do ahead in life, you can always talk to a professor. They have contacts, they can reach out for you. So it's very, whatever help you want at Ashoka will be given to you however they can. It is a very helpful and supportive university.
Wonderful. And now let's talk about what got you into Ashoka. So can you elaborate, like, let's say three things on your profile that according to you stood out, that oh, 100%, these in my opinion were the things that got me into Ashoka, so that people are thinking of Ashoka can start thinking on those lines.
Right. Firstly, your grades. Your grades have to be really, really very nice. Like, I don't think the students at Ashoka is a group of people that they're very academically qualified, plus have other skills. So that is the bare minimum. You have to have your grade. That has to be up. Secondly, they take your essay very seriously. You have an application essay, and their that is a way for them to gauge your personality. And so whatever you write in your essay, you should be very mindful about how you are putting it. And if you are different, you don't have to be very different also, but you just have to be natural. You have to write who you are, and that is something that they appreciate, compared to you writing your essay, somebody else writing your essay for you. That is something that they constantly, like, they find out, that somebody else has written it for you. And so you should not do that. Like, you should just write however you are, you should just write that. So that is the second. And I think third would be my extracurriculars. I did, like, you just have to be consistent with what you're doing. I did elocution for like 10 years of my life, and I think they saw that, and they saw that I was passionate about something, and I was still doing it, and that is something that they liked. So you, whatever you do extracurriculars, you don't have to have many. You don't have to, like, be a jack of all trades and a master of none. You should just have one thing or two maximum, but you should be doing that consistently. That, I think, that is what Ashoka is looking at.
Wonderful. So while I read your resume, I've seen you've done a research project on gene therapy and its potential in preventing and curing breast cancer. Just wanted to understand how important a role this was. What did you think while you were doing this, and how impactful it was to get you your admission or your admit at Ashoka?
That was my IPQ program. Like, that was the research paper I wrote for IPQ. And they saw that I was passionate about biology, and that the mere fact that, I did a research program, because this is optional. This is not something that you have to do for A levels. You can graduate without doing an IPQ as well. So they saw that, I was interested in it, and I went 1 mile ahead and did this research program. And Ashoka is really keen on research. We have great labs, great laboratories. I saw this underground facility for laboratories, and I was like, oh, this is the place I want to be, because it was amazing. And so yeah, they take research seriously as well, and they welcome any sorts of opinions. So I think that was something that helped my application.
And I see that, at Bright Star, which was your school until grade 10, you were the head girl.
Right.
So, do you think being the head girl or the head boy of a certain school, whether it's 9, 10th, or 11, 12, plays an integral role in demonstrating leadership that could be important in securing an admit at Ashoka or any other liberal arts schools in India?
Definitely. I think having a leadership position or any sort of position helps a lot for your application, not just at Ashoka but at other universities as well, because it shows that you have great management skills. You have people skills. You have leadership skills. You can manage your academics as well as your personal life. Well, it just shows that you're a well-rounded person. So that also helped me with my application. So yeah, if you have that, that is amazing.
So you also took the SATs and scored a 1440. I think that was your one shot try. You never did
Yeah.
one before, you never did one after. So do you think SATs are important for getting into, for getting into Ashoka? Like, do you think they checked your SAT score? Do you submit your SAT score? How do you go about doing it for Ashoka?
Ashoka already has this aptitude test that I think is similar to the one, not similar, but it is basically their way of their SAT, basically. And I think I had to do that irrespective of if I submit my SAT score or I don't. I think if your score is high, then only submit it. If it's low, then there's no need to submit it, because Ashoka is already testing your aptitude. Places like Kriya, I applied to Kriya as well, where I submitted my SAT score, and they eliminated the aptitude test for me altogether, because I've already done an aptitude test. So it does help in Korea, but at Ashoka I don't think it is. It's an optional thing. If you do it, it's good for you. Like, it's, if it benefits your application, just submit it. If it doesn't, it's okay.
Okay. And what does the Ashoka SAT comprise of? Now that you've put that
Yeah.
topic up, what are the subjects? What is it total out of? And is there any particular prep that students should be doing if Ashoka is their primary aim, or that's the college that they want to get into?
It's not basically sad, but it is a lot of logical thinking. It is mathematical reasoning, and it is just, you don't have to practice anything before that. It is normal questions that you have to answer, and I don't remember the marking scheme of it because it was a long time ago. But yeah, what you can do is you can go on the Cambridge site, and Cambridge has they have a paper on thinking skills that is their prerequisite to get into Cambridge. So that is something that you can practice off of. But you don't need to do it. Like, you could just sit for the paper and give it. You don't need to practice for it. It's okay.
Wonderful. That's great to know. And any last piece of advice for any student, who aspires to get into Ashoka? What would you tell them? What would you tell all the students who are watching today? Maybe thinking of Ashoka as a backup option, or maybe even their first option. I'm not quite sure how that looks like, but what's your take? Like, what is a piece of advice? Couple of pieces of advice as a student
Yeah.
of Ashoka and the person who's been through this entire process. Would be there, would it be for those people?
I would say, firstly, don't take applications too seriously. It's not that deep. It's really not that deep. You will get in where you're supposed to get in. Secondly, I think just be you. That is what Ashoka is looking for. In your interviews, also, there's no way of preparing for this interview. Uh, I know so many people who went mad behind preparing for it and it got them nothing. You just have to have a normal conversation with the interviewer. And I think if you're confident in who you are as a person, and if like your grades are up and you're motivated, even if your grades are not up, you are passionate about a certain subject and they see that or coming from you, then I think they will just you'll be admitted. So don't take it too seriously. It's really okay.
Perfect. And last but not least, what is the Ashoka application process? Like, how do you go about doing it? If you can just tell all of our viewers, like, step one, step two, step three, fill out the form, whatever. Like, if you can
Right.
just debrief it, it will also open up, doors to their head, and, help them prepare better. When does it start? And when does it end? And when do you get an admit and stuff like that? Whatever, of course, to the
Yeah.
best of your knowledge.
They have 4 rounds. The rounds begin in October. First round is in October. I applied in my first round. You don't require, if you are doing A levels or IB, you don't require your final grades because that comes later. For me, it came next October. So you don't need to give your final grades. All they need is your PG status predicted grades, and you're good to go there. In terms of grades, you'll have your application process where they will remove a form and you have to fill it out. They'll give you a good 4 to 6 weeks to write your application, to write your form, to submit your form, and do not rush through it. It's not first come first service. Just think about what you're writing, think about what you want to put in your form, and then only submit it. It includes 2 essays. That is, they will ask some quirky prompts, or one will be a quirky prompt, one will be a normal prompt, and it's 400 words, and the second is 150. At least that is what I had, and that is your application. Then you will have the Ashoka aptitude test that I talked about, which you have to submit, and then they after that you will be shortlisted for an interview, and then will come your final this thing, if you have been accepted, if you may not. Yeah.
Wonderful. So I think I have covered all grounds in terms of whatever questions I had. And this was actually a very enlightening interview for me as well. I wasn't aware of what Ashoka is. I've heard a lot of things from a lot of people. This is the first time encounter with, a student that I worked with, I trust with. And
Yeah.
so, that was very, very enlightening. So thank you, Viha, for your time.